Good morning and welcome to this morning's Queensborough President's Hybrid Remote Land Use Public Hearing. This hearing is being live streamed on the link from the webpage of the Office of the Queensborough President at www.queensbp.org. This is a hybrid remote land use public hearing because last week on June 24th, 2021, the governor rescinded the pandemic emergency order, and there wasn't enough time to reorganize this already scheduled public hearing into a live in-person hearing. If you wish to testify in person, this public hearing is being conducted live right now in the conference room of Borough Hall on the second floor at 120-55 Queens Boulevard. So if you want to come on down, just make sure you still bring your mask. For those who wish to testify and haven't already pre-registered for speaking time, you may do so by visiting www.queensbp.org/landuse. Please note your opportunity to speak will follow those who are pre-registered. Written testimony is welcome from those who are unable to testify. All written testimony must be received today by 5 p.m. and may be submitted by email to planning@queensbp.org. Once again, planning@queensbp.org, or by conventional mail sent to the Office of the Queensborough President at 120-55 Queens Boulevard, room 226, Kew Gardens, New York, 11424. This morning, I am joined by my planning director and staff, Irving Poi, Victoria Garvey, Vanessa Ordonez, and Malik Sanders. And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce Vanessa to review how the public hearing will proceed this morning. Thank you, Vanessa.
The public hearing shall be conducted in the following manner. For each item, the applicant will be called to give a description of the zoning action requested and an explanation of the proposed project and respond to any questions from the chair. The floor will then be open for public speakers. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. A signal will be heard when 3 minutes have passed. When you are called, please identify yourself for the record. And if you are officially speaking as a representative or member of a group, the calendar number application you are speaking about, whether you are for or against the item, then begin your testimony. And at the discretion of the chair, if there are a large number of speakers on any particular item, it may be put on a second call. Speakers for and against that item may also be called to testify on an alternating basis. Thank you for your cooperation.
All right, sorry for the little echo, but we will make it through this. Sooner or later, we'll all be back here. All right, you've just been advised on the proceedings of this hearing and how it will be conducted. Please keep your comments focused on the application you are speaking about. Please stay within your allotted 3 minutes. When you hear the signal, please wrap up and finish your comments. The chair reserves the right to ask speakers for clarification or further information regarding the application or comments. Vanessa, please call the first calendar item.
Calendar item number 1, ULURP number 180395 ZMQ. Applicant name RBB II LLC. Affected Community Board number 14.
Thank you.
Good morning, Borough President Richards.
Good morning, Richard.
I'm joined today by Dino Tomasevi, the owner and operator, an applicant in this proposed rezoning on 10602 Rockaway Beach, as well as Victor Folletti, the project architect, and Amanda Iannotti of my office. Amanda will be running through the presentation and will share her screen. So we're very pleased today to bring you the 10602 Rockaway Beach Boulevard rezoning in Queens Community Board 14. Next slide. The zoning actions sought today are straightforward. This is a zoning map amendment to rezone 2 sites from existing R5D C23 zoning to an M13 zoning district. This rezoning will facilitate a building of the type that you see before you. This is a 6-story self-storage building with public parking garage in the cellar and approximately 135,000 square feet. As is stated, the self-storage occupies the first 6 floors There are 7 accessory spaces to the public, self-storage facility and loading docks as well. The public parking garage is 83 attended spaces. Just by way of background, this is a project which has long been before Queens Community Board 14. We approached them with this several years ago. They followed up with us continually about the project. I think this really is evidence of what happens when an applicant comes together with the local area, listens to what they're asking for, and provides solutions. So, as is stated in the materials, there were prior meetings with the community board and the civic. The community expressed support for the project, but did say that this area was often congested in the summer due to beach traffic, and was wondering whether the developer would be able to put parking spaces in the cellar. At that time, given the additional cost of parking below the floor plate, this was a costly endeavor and was not sought by the developer. And so instead of providing the plans with 0 parking spaces, which was initially presented, the owner went back, the applicant went back and revised plans to include 83 parking spaces. This was seen as a huge win for the local area. This is something that everyone was really pleased about. And the community board chair specifically noted the willingness of the developer to actually materially change its plans here. So in addition, the support was around the fact that this is within the context of the area, this building, given the large residential to the south, and the water treatment plant to the north, that storage was badly needed in Rockaway Beach, given the fact that Sandy had wiped out many people's possessions, and this was a sensitive topic, and the additional parking spaces as mentioned. In addition, there's a commitment to local hiring. The applicant has also made a commitment to hiring from long-term employees from the local area, and typical senior, veteran, and youth organization discounts for storage at the site, something that was also sought by the community. Next slide. Given the length of the borough president's hearing today, we're just going to run through this rather quickly. You can see the R5D C23 district before you, which is now proposed for an M13 district. This is seen as particularly appropriate given the M11 district adjacent and the R6 across the street. Highlighted in red, you can see the proposed project area, lot 65, as well as here. And you can see the towers across the street. Again, Rockaway Beach Boulevard, the traffic would be alleviated through parking both on the ground level and cellar of the site. Next slide. The next slides merely show the surrounding area. Amanda, if you can go to the 3rd slide with photos. Right, I'm sorry, one prior. Right, so you can see in this photo the residential towers and the treatment facility adjacent to the site. As we just paged through the plans and materials, the renderings demonstrate what would be a typical 6-story storage facility building here. There's some variation in the facade materials, and we talked to the community board about treatment that they'd like, particularly in the glass and with the tinting of the glass. And Amanda, if you just want to run through the slides. We've got cellar level parking. Here's the rendering of the building in the context of the surrounding area. And then just the floor plans demonstrating cellar level parking, 83 spaces, it's fully attended, 7 spaces on the ground floor with loading docks, and then typical stories 2 through 6 with self-storage area. In conclusion, we're really thrilled with how this worked out at the community board. We were able to receive an overwhelmingly positive vote. I believe it was 20-5 in favor, and we're excited to move forward with this project, and the team is happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Richard, and congratulations on moving this forward. A few questions. Which self-storage company will be operating the facility?
So the intention is that Life Storage would be the operating self-storage operator. Dino Tomasetti, the owner and applicant, is with us. Dino, is there any additional comment on that?
No, we've established a relationship with Life Storage over the last couple of years. We're doing multiple projects with them. We selected them because I like their branding. I like the look of the buildings. I think it's very clean, attractive building, and they do a very professional job in the operations side. And we work closely with them. So we're still involved in the operation of the building. It's just they're the branding and the third-party manager of the property.
And it'll be open 24 hours, 7 days a week, or what are the hours of operation?
So the hours will typically be typically around 9 o'clock in the morning to 6 p.m. There will be 24-hour access, but it will be optional and it will be an extra charge. So, typically the normal hours will typically be between 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, with reduced hours on Saturday and Sunday.
Okay, and then you'll have a passcode to enter the facility, I'm assuming?
That is correct. Yes, there will every entrance will be secured, and there'll be a passcode to enter.
And speak about staffing and maintenance operations. What are you thinking?
For the self-storage operation, we're probably going to have between 5 to 7 full-time employees plus 1 or 2 employees for maintenance. The attended parking will also require probably 2 to 3 more employees as well. So overall, we're looking at about 12 employees full-time there.
And let me ask you, all right, and you spoke of, and I'm very appreciative, as Richard knows, local hiring is something near and dear to my heart. Are you partnering with any local organizations, or, how will you ensure that local residents within, the specific zip codes around this facility will be hired? What is your outreach strategy?
We haven't developed a full outreach strategy. I will say that, I'm a longtime Rockaway resident, so I'm very familiar with the area and the people within the area, and we certainly would be hiring within the area. We'd be happy to take any suggestions from you on outreach organizations that we can talk to. We haven't gotten to that point yet, but we're very willing to do that. And
we have Workforce One. There's several local CBOs in the area as well. So, it is my hope, especially since you're a Rockawayite, so am I, that we ensure that we're definitely prioritizing local hiring on this.
Absolutely, yeah. We could, if we could connect offline and get that information, we'd be very happy to do that.
Awesome. How do users contact our operators if there's a problem at the facility during off hours?
There will be a phone number, and basically it will be a 24-hour access number. So if there's an issue or an emergency, they can call that number, get somebody, and then there will be staff that could go there even on off hours.
And what are the hours of operation for the attended public parking garage?
We haven't finalized that yet. Right now, we're looking at doing it just as a seasonal. So it would be just for the summer parking, because that's really when the parking will be required. So let's say from Memorial Day weekend to Labor Day weekend, we would have attended parking. And again, that would be probably from 8 a.m. to, let's say, 7 p.m. or something like that. On the off season, there would be monthly parking. So we would still provide parking. It just wouldn't be attended. And we're looking at that as well. That there were some discussions with some of the local organizations that maybe it would be required year round. So we're also looking at doing the attended year round, but we're not sure yet if the demand is there.
Okay, and then CB14 recommended tinted windows on the proposed building being revised to show the tinted windows on the south side of the building facing Rockaway Beach Boulevard. Are you following through on that, or?
Absolutely. In fact, I met with the tenant association, it's the Surfside Tenant Association, which is for the buildings across the street, on Wednesday evening, and we discussed that again. At the community board meeting, I had committed to doing tinted windows, and I stand by that. We will absolutely do tinted windows, and the idea is that if the lights turn on inside the facility at night, they want to prevent too much light from affecting the residents of the buildings across the street. So we're willing to do that.
Right, and then just talk about your landscaping and operations, and something else that was important to them: greenery being installed around the building site and maintenance.
Yes, the renderings show the renderings that we provided do show trees that will be planted on the sidewalk in front of the building on 106th Street and Rockaway Beach Boulevard. So we intend on doing that as well. There isn't too much more room for landscaping there, but it's always the goal of a self-storage operator, particularly one such as Life Storage, which is a very large company with a very large footprint, to keep the facilities clean, safe, well lit. So that's something that we're fully committed to doing.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Dino. Irvin, do you have any questions? All right. So, all right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Board
do we have
President.
any- Thank you. Good to see you. Any members of the public wish to testify on this issue?
We have no speakers.
Okay. Seeing none, Vanessa, call the next calendar item.
Calendar items 2 and 3 are related. ULURP numbers 210192 ZMQ and ULURP number 210193 ZRQ. Applicant name 18517 Hillside LLC. Affected Community Board number 8.
Thank you. Richard,
Back
you
again.
Okay.
Don't
It
call
feels
it a-
like my days in the city council again.
I know, those were fun times. So good to see you again. Now my applicant is David Weiss, who is the owner and applicant for the 18517 Hillside Avenue rezoning. I am also joined by Amanda Iannotti of my office, who will page through the screen. This is the 18517 Hillside Avenue rezoning. You can see before you a proposed 9-story building with setbacks on the 7th and 8th floor. In order to accomplish this, the project would involve several facets. The first would be a zoning map amendment, so a rezoning, which would rezone portions or parts of several lots on this block front from R3X and R6A C24 to R7A C24 districts, and to extend the Special Downtown Jamaica District. By way of background, and you can see some of the zoning text amendments which are included as well, in the Special Downtown Jamaica District creation, to the blocks to the west and east of the project site, the zoning district boundaries and the special district was made to be coincident with lot depths. So there are deeper lots on many of these properties, and so the map generally mirrored those lot depths. Here, though, despite the fact that we have deep lots at 140 feet or greater, the zoning district and the special district was only mapped to 100 feet. So this action both rezones the parcels to R7A and also corrects that condition. You can see before you what the proposed development here would be. It would be a 9-story building with a total height of 91 feet. And as we go through eventually seeing the renderings, you'll see that this height and the development that's proposed here coincides with the adjacent development of these long-standing buildings. It's within about 10 feet of height, so we feel it's entirely appropriate. The difference, of course, is that in 2007, when the Jamaica Plan was initiated, mandatory inclusionary housing was not created yet, and so this now creates a 48 dwelling unit building, of which through option 1, 12 of these units would be fully affordable. Bike parking and, of course, off-street parking for cars would be available on the site as well. Next slide. So in very small print, you can see on the upper left-hand portion, the circled area. I think, Amanda, if you want to go to the next slide, it becomes a little clearer. Right, so here is the proposal, which is to take that zoning district and to extend the R7A back to encompass these parcels, as well as to map the Downtown Jamaica Special District on all these lots. Next slide. So why is this appropriate here? It's seen as particularly appropriate here for several reasons. One of them is that under the existing context of this development, on this 17,000 square foot lot, there exists a 1,700 or so square foot animal hospital. It's been there since the 1940s. It is doing nobody any real good. I mean, the proposal here, particularly because of the R7A and also importantly, because of the extension of the R7A to cover the existing R3X, this enables you to really unleash a lot of floor area on the site, whereas before it was severely limited. So you can see the buildings in the lower left to the left and right of this building, and then the animal hospital. The animal hospital is indeed kind of out of context with the area. Whereas when we go to the, eventually you see the renderings, you'll see that it really meets the context and creates important housing, both market rate and affordable units. There's a front-on shot of the animal hospital. Next slide. I think we can go past the photos. And then we're going to go into the project plans. So you'll see this is the footprint of the site, and here's the rendering we discussed, which you can see from the building types that we really fit in well with these surrounding properties. Importantly, there's a requirement for a 30-foot rear yard for residential buildings, we're actually going to be set back 80 feet from the rear yard. There'll be parking in the rear of this building. So we'll really, one of the benefits of this is it enables us to mass on Hillside Avenue, which is a wide street and appropriate for this type of development, and away from the smaller residential buildings to the rear. Allows for this extra space. You can see from the proposal that there's a ground floor commercial use, which is roughly 4,400 square feet. This is seen as being consistent with the downtown Jamaica area and Hillside Avenue, allowing for commercial use on the ground floor. And then Amanda, if you want to page through some of the additional plans and materials, this is the typical layout with regards to the residential floors, each totaling roughly 7,800 square feet. And then here's an elevation of the building showing the front elevation and the side elevation demonstrating the setbacks at the upper stories. So that's fairly conclusive with regards to the application. I would note, just as an aside, procedurally, this is a little bit odd because we did submit materials to Community Board 8, who asked us to meet with the Civic before they would see us. Technically, the Community Board's time will expire on July 12th. I've spoken to the chair of the Community Board as well as to the Civic Association, the Jamaica State Civic Association, who have agreed that we're going to work it out. We intend to meet with the Civic within the next 2 weeks, and then would meet with the Community Board likely in September, understanding that they would technically be outside of their ULURP review period. We're happy to get their input on this and look forward to meeting with everyone. We're really excited about the project. It kind of fills a gap in this block frontage and creates an opportunity for establishing some affordability in the area. And with that, the project team's happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Richard. And when you said work it out, what were some of the issues the Jamaica State Civic Association had?
Well, when I say work it out, Borough President, I'm really just referring to scheduling. Okay. I think that there maybe was some miscommunication internally, but I had the opportunity to speak to Martha Taylor last week, and we said that she was going to put together members of the Civic, and from there we would go to the Community Board. So it's more like, obviously ULURP is on a strict timetable, and we understand the pressures that the Community Boards face. So we're happy to get their input, and we look forward to sitting down with them.
And just go through how many units again? 48, was it 48?
Yeah, there's going to be 48 units. 48
and 12 of those under MIH option 1. And did you pursue subsidy from the city? No?
No, it would not be city subsidized.
Okay. And majority of the other units, market rate?
Yeah, the other units would be market rate.
And what is the range for the market rate units?
I know David Weiss is on the phone with us. David, I don't know whether or not you've gone into that level of detail yet as far as the rental rates for the market rate units.
Good morning, everybody. Can everyone hear me well?
Yes, good morning, David.
Okay, thank you. This application's been a bit of time in the making, so we would have to go back and study the market. But it was interesting when we had looked at it initially, the differential between the market rate and the affordable units, the MIH units, was actually not as wide a gap as many other areas in the city. This particular area of Jamaica is has a very nice solid feel of families and a general feeling of affordability. So I wouldn't have a specific number. We would have to restudy it, but it's been a while. So I don't know where it stands right now. My apologies.
And go through unit spread. How many 1s, 2s, 3s? What's the breakdown there?
I believe we have a matrix with Richard or Amanda, if you could pull that up.
Amanda's calling it out.
And while you do that, just go through, will there be community facility space in the facility?
In this building that we've proposed over here, we don't have any area set aside for community facility. We have space at the ground level, which would be retail to serve the community, and then we would have residential apartments above.
How much retail space here?
It's currently 4,400 square feet.
4,400 square feet. And is there no way to work out a community room? They may need space for their tenant association meetings? Is there no space to do that, or?
For the residents of the building, or for
Yes,
the?
yeah.
Oh, for the residents of the building, we do have space a lot. We don't have it allotted here because the cellar is not laid out. We haven't gone to that level of depth, but clearly for a building of this size, it makes sense from a marketing and from an operational point of view to have space for the residents to gather. So we would certainly want to work that into the building.
Okay, so if you could work with us so that we know how much space, if you can get that information to us, that would
Absolutely, absolutely.
And then on local hiring, Richard, you know me, MWBE procurement. What are we doing there?
So, I think David and I have talked about this a couple of times. And I told him about the preference of the Queensborough president for local hiring in MWBE. I think that, the project has been kind of, developed over a long period of time. So I think now that we're looking at these issues, the intention was that David was at the time was going to be seeking 421A relief for the project, which would, mandate, I think 25% for MWE construction. And so he wanted to, obviously, 421A is now expiring and we don't know what's taking its place, but he wanted to operate consistent with those guidelines. So, there would be that commitment.
Let me just then, and this will be my last question, is access to the rear yard parking provided by a new curb cut on Hillside Avenue?
There is an existing curb cut. Actually, I believe there are two existing curb cuts on Hillside Avenue. So, so far as I recall, I don't think we're expanding it. If anything, we're making it smaller than it was.
All right. I think it's pretty straightforward. Local hiring, community facility. It's gonna, it's important to me. I mean, obviously, I always prefer us using city subsidy in a lot of these projects, but if you're not pursuing it, I get that. I know there's a lot in the pipeline, a lot of people in the pipeline for subsidy right now with HPD. So, all right, so we look forward to working with you on this. Can you keep us updated on your conversations with the Jamaica State Civic Association? So please keep Irving apprised of whatever is going on there in the request. And obviously, I know this site very well as well. So if there's anything that they raise, if you can let us know, but I'm sure we'll be in touch with them as well.
Thank you, Borough President. We're happy to do it.
Thank you.
All right, awesome.
Thank you very
Alrighty,
much.
thank you. All righty, again, bye. All righty, are there any members of the public who wish to testify on this item?
We have no speakers from the public on this item.
All righty, seeing none, we'll close this calendar item and I'll ask you to call the next calendar item, Vanessa.
Calendar item number 4, ULURP number 210459ZSQ, N210457ZAQ, N210458ZAQ, N210460ZAQ, N210461LDQ. Applicant name WF Industrial 4 LLC, affected community board number 1.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and Rafael, if you want to kick us off.
Sure. Good morning, Mr. Borough President, and thanks for meeting with us today.
Good morning.
My name is Rafael De Niro. I'm one of the developers of the proposed studio project in Astoria, Queens, Wildflower Studios. Myself, my father, Bob De Niro, and Adam Gordon are all multi-generation New Yorkers. We have a little bit of an affinity for this part of Queens as well, because the film The Bronx Tale was shot in that area in 1992 and 3. And I actually worked as a production assistant at that time. So we're very familiar with the area and the borough. And we're excited to be doing this project. Given what the city has gone through over the past 18 months, we think that the timing couldn't be better in terms of job creation. The proposed studio project is about 495,000 square feet, 7 stories. It's going to be located at the western end of 19th Avenue between the Steinway Piano Factory and Oyster Creek. Some people refer to it as Steinway Creek. We are seeking discretionary approvals from city planning in order to construct the proposed studio. Our team is here today to review the project and answer any questions that any of you may have. And with that, I'll pass it back to Tracy Coffin from our Land Use Council, Greenberg Traurig.
Sorry, Tracy from Big.
Oh, excuse me, from Big.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for having us. I'm Tracy Coffin. I'm a senior project architect from Bjarke Ingels Group, and I will tell you a little bit about the proposed building for the project. So as we said, this is a soundstage facility. The project consists of 11 sound stages, and we, because of the size of the site, we are stacking them one on top of each other, which is a unique kind of typology of its kind. And due to just industry standards, the sizes of the sound stages are roughly 120 feet by 150 feet by 60 feet tall. And this is really what's driving the overall massing of the project. And on the next slide, you can see that what we've done is we've taken those sound stages and lifted them to create basically a logistical ground floor. Not only does this help us with our flood mitigation strategy because we are in a floodplain, but it also is bringing all the cars, all the delivery vehicles into the building to then connect to the sound stages above. So those are connected by the elevator core. So the building consists of about 33 elevators, bringing everything from that ground floor up to the spaces above. So once we established all those components, what we did is we took all the ancillary spaces of the building, such as scenery shops, production offices, dressing rooms, and we basically kind of wedged them between the sound stages to make the building super compact and efficient. And then we also have a few other spaces that we've provided for the tenants of the building, including entry lobbies, some green room spaces, and also including spaces like a fitness center, a commissary, and post-production for maybe productions that don't require a full sound stage. And then what that enabled us to do, the way we massed all of that on the site, we were able to pull that facade back off of 19th Avenue, roughly 16 feet. And that created a public access area along 19th Avenue. And the way it worked along the waterfront is we created a waterfront public access area. These are two open public spaces. And then this is a view from the creek looking toward that facade of the building at the waterfront public access area. The building's roughly 145 feet tall to the top of that ridge line. And then from the bulkhead above, 160 feet tall for the overall envelope at the bulkhead. What you're seeing at the facade is a concrete clad facade system. This, we went through a lot of design options of what this building could be made of, but this was really an effective system for acoustics and to support the productions within the building. But also where we could, we did try to implement glazing, such as at the lobby entrances and some of the kind of support spaces that could use daylighting. So they have nice interior spaces. And then in addition to that, what we've done to top off the building is provide 150,000 square feet of a solar array. So we have solar panels that can support some of the demands of the building. And from there, I think to speak more about the waterfront and some of the public spaces, I'll pass along to our colleague, Britt.
Thank you, Tracy. My name is Britt Zuckerman. I'm the senior landscape architect with Dirtworks. I'm working on the project. I'd like to talk a little bit about the two public open spaces in association with the studio. We're proposing 4,200 square feet of open space along 19th Avenue and 30,600 square feet of open space along the Leicester Creek shoreline. The 19th Avenue public space will create an almost 20-foot wide pedestrian boulevard-like experience on 19th Avenue with central plantings and a unique paving treatment within the property line. This space will feature the park standard World's Fair bench that will indicate to the public that this area is open for everyone's use. And the 19th Avenue landscaping and design will lead pedestrians down the street to the entrance of the WPAA, which will be marked by landscaping and clear signage indicating that the waterfront is open to the public. There's a number of unique educational opportunities throughout the waterfront area, including informational signage and habitat features. We worked with an ecologist to confirm species that would visit the site, while also referencing citizen scientist bird sightings at Leicester Creek. And the educational signage will feature unique graphics and information about the plantings and species that one could expect to see when visiting the park. All of our plantings serve a purpose beyond the aesthetic. The plant communities will support local pollinators, birds, while also being drought tolerant. All the plantings are in bioswales. They're selected to survive inundation from flooding and stormwater runoff. We developed the understory plantings to thrive in the site conditions, as well as for successional bloom time. The vertical charts next to each of the plantings shows that there should be something of botanical interest each month of the year. And several of these plants will also serve as phytoremediators, cleaning stormwater before it passes to the CSOs or Leicester Creek and purifying the air. Unfortunately, physical access to Leicester Creek creates a safety issue at the site due to low tides and pollution from the city's nearby combined sewer overflow. However, we understand from the community board and the Astoria Waterfront Vision Plan that visual access to the creek is also valuable. And the centerpiece of the WPA is this overlook, which extends directly to the shoreline and will provide views across Leicester Creek and up to the East River. From within the WPA, several seating areas and landscape framing will help inspire these secondary views. And the wood deck overlook allows safe visual access to the water. The interior plant pocket will create a quiet back for visitors, while also breaking up some of that large permeable space. And with that, I'd love to pass to my colleague, Rachel. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Rachel Skull. I'm an associate at Greenberg Traurig, and we are Land Use Council on this application. I'll walk you through the relief that we are seeking. The first action is a bulk special permit. It would affect 4 aspects of the proposed building. So first would be a waiver for height and setback, setback and base height regulations in the pink area shown here. As of right, at a height of 60 feet above the flood resistant construction elevation, or FRCE, the building would be required to set back from the waterfront. It's based on the shoreline. We are seeking relief within these pink areas to rise straight up. We are also seeking an overall height waiver. As of right, we would be permitted to rise to a maximum. The roof line could go to a maximum 110 feet above the FRCE, with the bulkhead rising to 140 feet above the FRCE. What we're proposing is a roof line 135 feet above that, with the bulkhead topping out at 150 feet above the FRCE. Next, these are very specific to the waterfront areas of the city. So we are seeking relief from the regulations governing length of walls facing the shoreline. Normally for a building of this height, we'd be subject to a 100-foot limitation. We are obviously seeking a waiver of that by 320 feet on one side. And then of course we face the waterfront again on the south side of the building, another 25 feet there. And we are seeking relief from ground floor streetscape requirements. Within the waterfront area, we would be required to have 50% of our street frontage and frontage on the WPA space used as floor area. We're proposing that the ground floor be used mostly for parking and loading in order to get all of that off the street. That space does not count as floor area under the zoning resolution, which is why we're seeking this waiver. Our floor area on the ground floor would be limited to our lobby spaces. We are also seeking 2 authorizations. The site is part of a combined zoning lot with the Steinway Piano Factory site. We are seeking an authorization that would reduce the amount of area to be provided as waterfront public open space. The zoning resolution requires that 15% of a zoning lot be provided as waterfront public open space, and the relief we're seeking is for that 15% to be based on our development site. So that's the reduction there. We are also seeking an authorization to modify design requirements within the waterfront public open space, mainly to account for the design's ecological focus. These modifications would not reduce the amount of seating or tables required by the zoning resolution, and they would not affect ADA accessibility. And then finally, we are seeking a certification from the chair of the City Planning Commission to confirm that our resulting site plan complies with all of the waterfront regulations with the modifications. We are aware that a big concern of the community board is that the street end of 19th Avenue does not get left behind with all the improvements happening in the surrounding area. So just to give some context here, you see the Wildflower Studio shoreline in green, the DSNY Queens 1 salt shed and garage. They acquired in an action, I think a year ago now, the 2 properties shown in yellow there, and they are also leasing driveway access adjacent to the blue there. We've met with DSNY a few times now. We're not sure what they're doing on their waterfront and what their plans are at the moment, but the community is concerned that the street end itself, shown in red, does not get left behind as improvements are made on the surrounding creek. Alteration to the street end raises a number of concerns, which we hope we can work through with the community board and our future neighbor DSNY and a number of city and state agencies that would be involved in the process. To that end, Wildflower has committed time from consultants, including Greenberg Charig, our landscape architect Dirtworks, and our waterfront consultant TMS, to work with the community board to develop a plan for the street end and to coordinate with the various government agencies involved. We believe that as a team, we can make a significant improvement to the street end. And now I'm going to turn it over to Shay from TMS to discuss what it would take to get there.
Thanks, Rachel. My name is Shay Thorvaldson from TMS Waterfront, the waterfront consulting on the project, doing the waterfront design and the permitting. One of the issues with 19th Avenue, which isn't a huge issue, but it falls under the jurisdiction of a number of different agencies. The street end is technically part of the mapped 19th Avenue, which means it would be owned by the DOT. DOT's main concern here has been safety, and they've asked that we replace the existing Jersey barrier at the terminus of the paved street. In addition, FDNY requires the 19th Avenue roadway be at least 72.4 feet wide at its base to accommodate the fire truck. Based upon our survey information and aerial photos, the street end between the barrier and the creek falls within the state DEC, Department of Environmental Conservation's jurisdiction, and that's the green area that's shown on the slide there. Almost anything we would do here, including the removal of existing plant matter, would require some form of DEC approval. That being said, if we were to work with the city to obtain a DEC permit for this area, there are a lot of options for what could be accomplished here. When we analyze those options, we also need to account for the city DEP, Department of Environmental Protection's input. They're responsible for maintaining that CSO at the end of the street, which deposits into the creek. DEP generally reserves an easement of 5 to 10 feet from the CSO's pipe edge out to either side, which is the area you see hatched there. To ensure that they have the space they need to maintain their infrastructure. Coordination would be required to ensure that no improvements to the street and prevent DEP from accessing the CSO. We definitely understand the community board has been doing its own work to push for improvements to the street end. We're happy to join their efforts in improving the space. And with that, I'll pass it back to Rafael.
Thank you, Shay. And I'd just like to open it up for any questions.
Thank you. And I know you touched on sanitation, which I know has been something the community board has also raised. So have you been in touch with them and sort of has sanitation responded, or what has your outreach plan?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry. We have our first meeting with them, if I'm not mistaken, was last July. That was around the time that they were securing their site, and they wanted to have an understanding of everything we were doing on the waterfront, which we shared with them. And we offered to help them at that time if there was anything that they needed in terms of assistance with choosing certain types of plantings and things related to the sort of overall aesthetic quality of their waterfront. Since then, we've had another meeting, and I think there may have been even a third that I was not part of. And that was sort of them wanting to get an additional update on where we were with our design, which was more fleshed out on the second meeting. And their issue seemed to be that they did not know when or if they were going to be able to secure the necessary funds to improve their waterfront. That may have changed since our last meeting because it predates a lot of federal money that has been given to New York State and potentially to the city. So I'm not certain if that's still the case for them, but that was the issue for the last year.
So we look forward in Irving, we should connect all parties and sort of try to get to the bottom of this as well as we move through this application as well. I understand you've also had discussions. I want to pivot to jobs quick with 32 BJ. How many jobs are you anticipating?
Yeah, we have not spoken to 32 BJ. We've had internal discussions about building staffing, but we're not at the point where we can really reach out to them because we don't know what this building is going to be. Once city planning approvals are in place, we can then advance conversations with potential users of the studio or tenants. And at that point, we can determine how the stages are going to be rented out and operated. And at that point, we can discuss building staffing needs. And of course, we will be speaking to 32 BJ.
And you don't have a guesstimate on how many jobs you anticipate at the site?
We do. So in terms of construction jobs, it's probably about 600. The foundation is being constructed as we speak and will be completed in September. And we'll then start going vertical. I'm not sure what the number of jobs becomes once we're going vertical, but I believe it still hovers around the same 600. And then once we're up and running, it's looking to be between 1,000 and 1,200 people per day. The majority of those people are union people, whether it's grips and lighting and gaffers who are putting the sets together, or the Teamsters, or 32 BJ, as you mentioned. It's going to be predominantly union people working in the building.
And go through, and I know the Astoria House is not too far. And so have there been any outreach, or have you thought about reaching out to public housing residents that are not too far from there?
We have, and what we're really thinking about is Ravenswood houses, Astoria houses, and even Queensborough houses to some extent, because it's the largest housing complex in the country, public housing complex in the country. And we think that it was overlooked by someone else who will go nameless a couple of years ago, and we're not going to do that.
I like that. And are you working with any local CBOs to make sure you're connecting with them?
Yes, we've had some preliminary conversations, if I'm not mistaken, but I know that we're going to be having quite a few more with the Girls and Boys Club. And let me just see if I can find the list quickly.
I could. We've reached out also to Urban Upbound. We're in the process of setting up a meeting, as well as LaGuardia Community College, about opportunities there. We're trying to get in touch with Frank Sinatra High School for the Arts to see if down the road there's opportunities for internship programs or some sort of program like that.
So that's important to me. I love all of that. So if you can keep us abreast of that as we move forward throughout the application. And we really want to make sure this is a great project. Jobs coming to Queens, a real opportunity. To reach out to high school students to give them some experience as well. Perhaps maybe there's some internship opportunities as well. So I want to thank you for that as well. And then MWBEs, are you what is your outreach strategy there?
So we're pursuing ICAP. So because of that, we will be placing quite a bit of emphasis on that.
And, and any of that, once again, we also, I just want to mention, we do local job fairs, virtual, at least for now, monthly. So as you move into your, job creation, I would hope that you're in touch with us, and we could maximize that opportunity to make sure we're getting the word out to local residents as well. And the same on MWBEs as well. It's very important that we are, ensuring we strengthen MBEs through this opportunity as well. And even in terms of, the food you're going to purchase, or as people come in, because a lot of times, something we've talked to the mayor's office of film about is making sure that there is a connection to the local restaurants as well, so that we can really, strengthen, and really have a true community partnership as we move through these projects. So we know you're going to have a lot of film crews coming in, and we really would love if you're working with local restaurants in the area as well.
Yeah. We did not design a large commissary or restaurant or cafeteria with that specifically in mind. And one of the things that's great about Astoria is that it's, to us, one of the most food-rich and amenity-rich neighborhoods in New York City. So we've thought a lot about that, going back to conversations a couple of years ago with State Senator Ramos, and we are going to be encouraging everyone to eat in the community.
And
I was just eating there Sunday.
we've also had the opportunity to meet with the United Community Civic Association, who's been helping introduce us to some local business owners as well. They've been very helpful.
Okay, great. And I think there's another, what's Jonathan Forgash's, and do you remember his organization? There's another organization up there that has organized a lot of restaurants up there as well. I forget, I'm blanking on their name, but we'll make sure we connect you with them as well. And they do a lot of great work in that specific area with business owners as well. Alrighty, I think that's it. But thank you. We look forward to following up, on many of the things we raised today, and it's a great project for Queens. So I'm looking forward to it. And you also, just lastly, just touch on your green energy features in the building. Are you going to have solar? What are you looking?
Sure, there will be solar panels on the roof. We're pursuing all best practices in terms of energy efficient construction and equipment, and even our flood mitigation plan, which and Shay from TMS can speak more to this, but the first 17 or so feet of the structure, no basement, are going to be where all the parking and loading of trucks happen, all moved off the street. But that also doubles as a flood mitigation measure, because if we have another Superstorm Sandy-like event, theoretically, all the water could wash sort of under our building and through it and then back out, and we could be back up and running the same day or the next day with generators on the roof, et cetera. So we have taken into consideration a lot of environmental factors, and we'll be continuing to refine that as we continue the design.
How many parking spots? I meant to ask you that too.
I think around 300, Rachel.
310 parking spaces.
Oh, 310, okay. Great. And will you have a point of contact if there are complaints? Is there someone who, neighbors would be able to call in terms of, it is my hope that you keep the trucks off the streets. We always hear complaints about this in these areas.
Yeah.
So
we will set up a means for that to happen. That sort of has been, to some extent, going through me. I've been talking and meeting with a lot of community members over the last couple of years since we acquired the site. But we'll get a formal process in place to make sure that any concerns or issues that come up are addressed quickly.
Great. And then the group I was talking about is Astoria Eats.
Yep.
So we could make sure, I think that Jonathan Forgash does some great work up there as well. So
yeah, we would be glad to connect with them right after the holiday, actually.
All right, perfect. All right. So my deputy VP is on, and she'll make sure that happens as well, Rhonda Vinda.
Thank you.
All righty, great. Well, congratulations. Look forward to seeing this project through, and God willing, having a groundbreaking and ribbon cutting eventually. So
thank you very much.
Right. Thank you so much. All right, are there any individuals who wish to testify on this issue?
We have no speakers.
All righty, great. Seeing none, we will now move on to the next calendar item.
Calendar item number 5, ULURP number N210380ZRY. Applicant is Department of City Planning, and this application is for consideration citywide.
Good morning. I think this is for the fresh update text amendment. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, sounds good. Let me share my screen. I'll go through a quick refresher. Okay. So good morning. My name is Jackie Sun Wu. I'm from the Department of City Planning, and I'm the lead project manager for the Fresh Update Zoning Text Amendment. So we referred this text amendment out on May 19th, and this proposal is currently in public review. So I'll go through the background very briefly and then move on to the updates. I'd be happy to take any questions after. So FRESH is an existing program in the zoning resolution that was created in 2009. This proposed text amendment is an update to this existing program. So FRESH aims to encourage more supermarkets in underserved areas of the city and to increase accessibility to fresh foods. Also, the recent pandemic highlighted the importance of having supermarkets nearby more than ever. So as part of the department's broader goals for recovery, this update aims to help speed such economic recovery from the pandemic and to ensure that neighborhoods have good access to fresh foods. So as mentioned, FRESH was adopted in 2009, and the program has two components to it. So one is a discretionary tax incentives program that's managed by NYCEDC, and there's a zoning component which is managed by us at City Planning. So what the map here is showing you is where these programs are eligible. In light gray are where the tax incentives apply, and green is where the zoning incentives apply. And there are some areas where both of these programs apply, and that's illustrated in the darker green shade. But more relevant for us today is the FRESH zoning component, which is a certification process by the chair of the City Planning Commission. And it provides 1, reallocated residential square feet for every square footage of a fresh food store up to 20,000 square feet. An applicant can also apply for a 15 feet additional height in order to absorb this additional reallocated floor area, but this would actually make it into an authorization process from a certification. And the difference between a certification and an authorization is that the authorization process requires a CPC approval, whereas a certification would be a non-discretionary action by the chairperson only. In light manufacturing or M1 districts, the fresh store can build as of right up to 30,000 square feet, whereas currently the as of right square footage for a food store in M1 districts are 10,000 square feet. And lastly, depending on which district you're in, an applicant can receive some parking relief with the FRESH program. And since the adoption of FRESH in 2009, there are currently 27 approved or certified FRESH projects citywide. Out of these, 8 are now occupied by a supermarket operator. So the Supermarket Needs Index, or what we call an SNI at the Department of City Planning, is a metric that we came up with in 2008 in order to analyze the need for grocery stores across the city. It was a way for us to evaluate how the program is working and where there is more need. So the map here is showing you is the updated SNI as of 2018, which combined 4 different variables, including walking distance, car ownership, families living in poverty, and the trade area. And what our analysis showed was that many neighborhoods in the city still outside of the existing fresh boundaries still remain underserved by fresh food stores. And our conversations with stakeholders and the general public also illustrated that an expansion of the program may benefit some of these areas. And along with our own analyses, there's been a citywide effort to improve food equity, including the mayor's 10-year food policy plan. This plan recommends expanding food benefits to reach more New Yorkers in more places and greater access to healthy, affordable foods. All New Yorkers deserve to live within a comfortable walking distance from a food store and to have choices about where to shop. And grocery stores are a fundamental component of neighborhoods, and the COVID pandemic made us realize this fact even more. So the expansion and improvement of the FRESH program will not only help speed the city's recovery, but it will meet the needs of communities that have already been struggling as food deserts. So moving on to the updates, the main changes we're proposing to the program are an expansion of the FRESH boundary into some of the high need areas that you saw before. We're also proposing to include a mechanism to prevent concentration of fresh supermarkets. We're also including modification to the glazing requirement for conversion projects, as well as parking requirements in order to provide greater relief in lower density residential districts. I also listed out some clarification that we're making to the zoning text. So I'll go through these one by one now. So first, we're proposing to expand Fresh in the 4 boroughs except for Manhattan in a total of 11 community districts. And you can see that we're expanding into the 4 community districts in Queens, including CB 1, 3, 4, and 14. CB 1 and 12 already has Fresh mapped. The ones that are mapped here are the only community districts that will be affected by the proposal. And these boundaries were based on the updated supermarket needs index, as well as the city's overall land use policy goals in each of the borough and neighborhood. So this is a closer look at Queens. The hatch green areas are where we're expanding into, and the solid green is where Fresh is already mapped. And the left map is showing the zoning map, and the right is showing you the supermarket needs index. So another big update that we're making to the Fresh program is a provision to prevent concentration of Fresh supermarkets in applicable areas. So I want to take a step back and put this into context. We currently have 27 certified or approved Fresh projects as of last month. And out of these 27, around 15 are actually in Bedford-Stuyvesant in Brooklyn alone. So the Brooklyn office, as well as the community, came to us and voiced their concerns about this. And mostly because a concentration of fresh food stores can have the potential to run existing supermarkets out of business and incentivize buildings that are bigger than what the underlying zoning permits. So in a nutshell, what we're proposing is that the reallocated residential floor area within a half-mile distance to be kept at 40,000 square feet. And what this means is that essentially within a half-mile radius, there would only be 2 20,000 square feet large fresh supermarkets allowed, assuming that they take full advantage of the additional residential FAR. And while we understand that this can't completely stop or discourage a supermarket from going into a neighborhood, it is a way for us to preemptively control over building of supermarkets and unanticipated bigger buildings than what is typically allowed. So here on this slide, I have listed some of the other updates that we're making. We will be removing the glazing or transparency requirement for conversion projects only. So the current provision requires that 50% of the ground floor surface area to be transparent, but we've been told that this requirement is too costly and difficult to meet. So we will be removing this for conversion projects only, but new buildings would still have to meet this 50% requirement. And this is actually consistent with what we do for conversion projects and other parts of the zoning resolution. We're also modifying parking rules because with the proposed expansion, Fresh now includes a lot more lower density residential districts. So currently, Fresh eases parking rules by requiring 1 parking space per 1,000 square feet of commercial floor area in most of the districts. But since we now have more lower density residential districts, in R3 through R5 districts, Fresh will now require 1 space per 400 square feet of supermarket floor area with a 25 space waiver. And then any excess floor area will have to meet the underlying parking requirement. Lastly, we have some clarifications that we're making to the zoning text based on public feedback. We want to clarify that the definition of fresh store is currently the minimum requirement of a fresh store is that it is 6,000 square feet. But we want to clarify in the text that this 6,000 square feet of selling area has to be contiguous and located on the same floor. And the intention of this change is to ensure that the good portion of a supermarket is guaranteed for good access. We're also trying to redefine the distribution of perishable and non-perishable goods within a supermarket to provide more flexibility for supermarket operators. So we've been told that the current requirement of having 80% of selling area be food is really difficult to meet and too stringent. So we will be modifying this to be 60% requirement of selling area to be food, leaving 40% as flex space for the operators to decide. We're changing the rules for the restrictive declaration. Right now, all fresh projects are required to have a restrictive deck, which is basically a legal agreement to have a supermarket in place in perpetuity. But this requirement could make an application process a bit more arduous. So we will not be asking this of fresh projects that don't increase their residential floor area. So if a food store is already an as of right use and the building is not bigger than what the zoning permits, then there's no need to require this legal agreement. So that concludes my presentation on the fresh update text amendment. So thank you, and I'll be happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you so much, Jackie, and what a way to come out of the pandemic.
Right.
This is really a great amendment, text amendment, and something I've worked on for probably, 5 or 6 years. So I'm very happy to see it getting up off the ground and ready to go finally and making its way through to the council. I wanted to ask you, so let's talk about, because I remember as we were looking at expanding Fresh, there were a lot of questions around outreach, troubleshooting, and I wanted to hear what is the DCP's plan to make sure that outreach efforts are really being done. But also in terms of troubleshooting, we would hear from a lot of operators. I think, if I might have this right, the NSA, the National Supermarket Association, don't quote me on the name of the association. I just remember working with them. I think you're right. A little bit. But they had a lot of questions around, if they needed technical support, there was technically no one around to really help them get through the application process. So what is DCP planning to do to correct that?
Right. So thank you for flagging that. I think that's something that we as city planning became aware of during the proposal development process, because we went out to speak with a lot of supermarket operators and they definitely brought this concern up. So city planning and EDC actually meet regularly to discuss the fresh proposal and which applications are actually going through the process. And it's definitely a work in progress still, but city planning has definitely reached out to EDC and said, hey, we need to work on better outreach so more people actually know the program. And we're trying to develop more better ways to kind of market the proposal and reach out to people who are not aware of the program. We'll definitely try to keep you in the loop on how this is progressing, but I do want to let you know that this is something that we're aware of and trying to work on.
And with potential development in some of the areas that are being mapped, I mean, would city planning be more proactive as applications come before you, especially in food deserts, and, alerting developers that this program actually exists?
Yeah, I mean, we actually, so whenever developers come in interested in the Fresh program or wanting to do a Fresh program and they have a hard time finding an operator, we always encourage them to come to us because we can always connect them to EDC, who has also a solid program, a point person for Fresh, and she knows a lot of the supermarket operators, not only in the city, but regionally. And we try to connect them to a lot of these different stakeholders. So, and we're also trying to be more proactive in our own way too. So city planning is thinking about having a point person who can kind of manage these flow of applications. So yeah.
And I was going to get into that next. Is there a hotline? Will you have promotional materials? And we of course would love to see a point person or office, because one person can't do it alone, but certainly a dedicated staff to Fresh. Where, and this is just going back to my time speaking to operators, a point dedicated place people can call to troubleshoot to get that information out. So that's something we would want to see, and we would certainly include in our recommendations for both city planning and EDC as we move through this amendment.
Yeah. I would love to see a Fresh hotline. That would be amazing. But EDC actually has a platform where a lot of people can kind of like shoot them a message, like asking them questions and some concerns. And we're also trying to up our DCP website so that Fresh has a dedicated page and an email and a point person. So please do put it in the recommendation. It's something that we're actually very aware of as well. So I do want to note that we are working on that.
How many, do you know how many operators have taken advantage of Fresh and CB12?
CB12. I would have to look that up right now, actually.
Hi, this is Joy Reeser from the Queen's office, and I can actually speak to that, Jackie.
Thank you.
No problem. For present, we've had a couple applications come through, but none have really materialized. So we would definitely love to see more applications or any applications get approved in Community Board 12.
And how many got approved in CB1? Do we have a number on that?
I believe
We've
there's
only had
just one.
Sorry, go on, Joy.
Sorry. I believe we only have one currently existing in Community Board 1. I'm not aware of any other active applications.
And that's one. And how many applicants have there been, if you don't mind me asking? Or are we only seeing one because the rest couldn't make it through the process, or didn't see it through, or had trouble, or did we just have one developer apply for this?
Alexis, you might be better positioned to speak to that. I'm not certain about that.
Sure. In the case of CB1, we have had, I believe, 3 different applications, including the one that has ultimately been approved and utilized the program. The other 2, one sort of just didn't really follow through with completing their project, and then the other one had sort of abandoned their proposal altogether. So it wasn't necessarily driven by complications related to the fresh regulations.
Right. And if I can add to that, I think they came in with the interest of fresh, but fresh actually wasn't mapped in the area that they were interested in. And that was one of the driving forces of us like looking at the area and seeing if there's enough demand. Yeah, which I think we're mapping fresh in all of the previous interests in the applications.
Okay. And I mentioned, I think, in our Borough Cabinet meeting a few weeks ago, CB13 being mapped as well, included. Did we have any response to that?
CB13, Troy, do you have an idea as to CB13?
I know they had raised concerns or the desire for the program to be expanded into Community Board 13. And I think our response had been that we would definitely be open to looking at expansion opportunities. But I don't want to speak too much for HED.
Okay, so when will we know?
Jackie, I don't know if you could speak to that.
Yeah, I'll have to. I actually wasn't aware of that. So it's good that I heard it. We'll take it back to city planning and our division and definitely look into it more.
Great.
It's unlikely it would be added as part of this process. It would have to be part of a follow-up action if it were to be expanded.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Because it hasn't been analyzed to be in scope.
Okay. Okay, but I would really appreciate you looking at 13.
Absolutely.
And only because I see that we're losing 13.
We're not losing 13. 13 wasn't.
I mean, we're losing supermarkets in 13.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. All righty. All right. Thank you. I look forward to seeing this through. Thank you. Vanessa, we have any individuals testifying? I think we have one person, I think.
No, that one person was an error, so we have no speakers on this item.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you. Thank you all for your work on this. So we'll close this and Vanessa will call the next calendar item.
Calendar item number 6, ULURP number N210382ZRY. The applicant is Department of City Planning, and this application is for consideration citywide.
Good morning. This is Dylan Sandler. I'm a senior planner at the Department of City Planning and the project manager for this proposal for the health and fitness citywide text amendment. So I'm also going to just share my screen and go through a few slides, and then I'm happy to take any questions. Okay. So this is a proposal to cut red tape for businesses that provide health amenities. So gym, spas, and licensed massage therapy. Similar to the last text amendment, this was referred out by the City Planning Commission on May 19th. And it's a 60-day referral to community boards citywide and borough president's offices. The businesses that are affected by this proposal include a range of health and fitness activities. So this includes the larger commercial gyms like Blink and Planet Fitness, but also smaller independent gyms and studios that exist around the city. So things like martial arts and cycling studios and yoga, Pilates, and many others. And it also includes wellness facilities and therapeutic facilities like spas and licensed massage therapy. Currently, there is a special permit that is required to open almost all gyms, spas, and massage therapy across the city. This was a Board of Standards and Appeals special permit that was created in the 1970s with the direct intention of using zoning to try to reduce commercial sex that was occurring within massage parlors and health clubs, mostly in and around Times Square. At the time that this was created, New York City didn't really have the range of commercial gyms that exist today. So there were some larger nonprofits like the YMCA and community centers that had health classes, but the range of fitness facilities and gyms like indoor cycling and rock climbing gyms and yoga were pretty unusual at that time. And there really wasn't the expectation that there would be a huge range of very legitimate businesses that communities want that would be caught up in this special permit that at the time was very targeted in its purpose. So a lot has changed since then. In addition to there being a lot of growth in this industry and a lot of desire for these kinds of amenities in communities, there have also been changes in massage therapy regulation. So massage therapists are now licensed by the state of New York, by the New York State Education Department. And there's a registry of all licensed massage therapists that exists publicly online. And yet gyms and spas and massage therapists continue to be very uniquely regulated by zoning. This special permit typically takes about 6 or 7 months to be granted. And it costs businesses in the range of $30,000 to $50,000 to go through the process, including very significant fees to architects and land use attorneys to be granted a special permit. In addition to the high cost for businesses, it limits the locations where these facilities can be. And so many local commercial streets, mostly are C1 districts, where zoning allows other commercial and service uses like restaurants and laundromats and drugstores, don't allow gyms and spas and massage, even if an applicant wanted to go through the special permit process. And finally, at a time when retail vacancy in some areas is quite high, and the city is still recovering from the impacts of the pandemic, we want to ensure that our zoning is flexible enough so that businesses can occupy space. And this is particularly true for an industry like the health and fitness industry that has been growing in recent years, and we see as businesses that really have the potential to grow and use what could be vacant space in neighborhood commercial streets. So moving into the details of the proposal, DCP is proposing to remove the BSA special permit entirely. In zoning, this is called the physical, culture, or health establishments. We would be removing this definition and removing the special permit. And in its place, we would be allowing gyms and spas as commercial uses that would be allowed as of right. So smaller gyms and spas, those that are limited to 10,000 square feet in floor area, would be use group 6 in zoning. So these would be allowed in all commercial and manufacturing zoning districts. And then larger gyms and spas, those that are unlimited in size, so larger than 10,000 square feet, would be use group 9. So these would be allowed in C2 districts and higher, as well as manufacturing districts. And we would also permit these uses in our highest density C1 districts, which are primarily in portions of Manhattan. And this distinction between commercial uses that are smaller than 10,000 square feet and larger is consistent with the way zoning regulates many other commercial uses. So things like many stores, like furniture stores have the same kinds of differences between where smaller and larger facilities are allowed. For licensed massage therapy, we would be, after the special permit is removed, we would be allowing licensed massage therapy consistent with other ambulatory healthcare uses. So because these are licensed medical facilities, these would be allowed as use group 4A as a community facility, or they would be allowed as use group 6B as a healthcare office. And so these would be permitted in commercial and manufacturing districts, as well as most residential districts. So all residential districts, excluding R1 and R2, our lowest density residential districts, permit ambulatory healthcare uses and would now similarly allow licensed massage therapists. And I should note that unlicensed massage therapy is illegal to practice in New York State. And within this zoning, we have maintained a prohibition on any unlicensed massage therapy occurring within a business anywhere in New York City. So the regulations around unlicensed massage or a business that is offering massage but engaging in any illicit activity would be consistent with the existing zoning regulations and enforceable by the Office of Special Enforcement. And finally, just to touch on noise and vibration regulations briefly. When gyms currently go to the Board of Standards and Appeals to seek a special permit, the BSA occasionally imposes conditions related to noise and vibration attenuation. So things like additional padding in the floor or noise limiters on stereos. And so to maintain some of these protections, we are including a performance standard within the zoning so that a subset of gyms, so those that are higher intensity and include things like free weights or exercise equipment or machinery, would need to have an acoustical engineer certify with the Department of Buildings that they are designed to, that the space is designed to address noise and vibration. And so these performance standards are linked to national standards for impulsive noise for things like dropping weights and for vibration for activities like using exercise machinery in unison, like many bicycles or treadmills. These regulations would apply in all mixed-use buildings, in commercial districts, as well as MX districts, as mixed manufacturing districts. The lower intensity uses like yoga, youth martial arts, spas, and other things that don't involve free weights or exercise equipment would not be subject to these additional performance standards for noise and vibration, but would still need to meet the New York City Noise Code. So those are all of my slides. I would be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Now, is there any concern about oversaturation of some of these facilities and pockets of the city?
That's not a concern. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go.
That is not a concern that we have heard. Most communities seem to really appreciate these kinds of amenities, and they have been growing in recent years. But we have not heard concerns from community members about an oversaturation of them.
And any concern from community boards that we should be aware of?
The main concerns that have come up relate to concerns about enforcement of commercial sex within businesses that are offering massage. As I said in the presentation, the regulations don't actually change, and so we've worked very closely with the Office to End Gender-Based Violence that sort of deals with issues around human trafficking and sex trafficking, and also work very closely with the Mayor's Office of Special Enforcement to make sure that the regulations are enforceable and that they sort of are consistent with the goals of the city related to enforcing illegal activity, as well as supporting people who are involved in human trafficking. So we feel that the proposal sort of addresses those concerns, but it is something that has come up. And then the other concern that we've heard from some community boards is just a desire to continue to be able to review individual projects and a belief that community boards in some cases like to understand what's coming into their community and want that ability to weigh in about the business.
And how will you ensure that happens?
Well, we believe that gyms and massage and spas are, that they're no different than other commercial uses, or in the case of massage, that they're no different than ambulatory healthcare. So, we certainly are soliciting a lot of input in designing this as of right program, and really want to make sure that it addresses communities' concerns about where these can be located and how they're designed and operated. But we think that it is important to allow these kinds of uses without a lot of onerous regulations.
All right, thank you. It's pretty straightforward. Thank you. All righty. Any members of the public wish to testify on this?
We have no speakers for item 6.
All right, great. Seeing none, we'll move on to the next item.
Calendar item number 7, ULURP number N210406 ZRY. The applicant is Department of City Planning, and this application is for consideration citywide.
Hello, everyone. Just a moment. Dylan, would you be able to share my presentation? Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. 1 second, please.
Thank you. Dylan, we're just kind of seeing a black screen.
Okay, I apologize. Let me try one more time.
I tried to share with my Mac and it's not working.
No problem.
Dylan and Alex, I can give it a quick try. I have it downloaded, so.
Is this working?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, great.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Alex Placas. I'm with the Department of City Planning, and this is an application for a citywide hotel special permit. Next slide, please, Dylan. So this project is a zoning text amendment that would create a new special permit for hotel development across the city. The goal is to create a consistent framework for hotel development and ensure that new hotels do not negatively affect the surrounding area. Next slide, please. So I'd like to start with a description of New York City's hotel market over the past decade. By 2019, before the pandemic hit, New York City had experienced record growth in the tourism industry and its hotel pipeline for the 10th consecutive year. Visitor trends peaked in 2019 with almost 67 million visitors, up from 46 million in 2009. Visitors were forecasted to increase even more in 2020 to almost 69 million. Furthermore, sizable growth of hotel room supply has been a prevailing factor in New York City for much of the past decade as well. Between 2009 and 2019, the total number of hotel rooms in New York City market grew from just over 80,000 to over 127,000. In the past 5 years alone, New York City saw a 40% increase in hotel inventory. Despite this increase in hotel room supply, demand also continued to rise, keeping the annual occupancy at almost 87%, which is one of the highest rates for urban markets in the United States. The growth of the New York City market over the last decade was driven by both international and domestic travelers. And these visitors are coming to New York City for its cultural offerings, with shopping and sightseeing being the principal reasons for about 86% of international visitors. Next slide, please. So over the years, rapid growth of new hotels across different districts in the city has led to concerns about conflicts with surrounding uses. Notably, in 2018, a special permit was adopted for hotels in M1 districts to address conflicts between hotels and the operations of industrial businesses. Next slide, please. So over the years, the rapid growth of new hotels across different districts in the city has led the City Planning Commission to adopt a variety of special permits, resulting in an inconsistent framework for regulating hotels. And as we can see on the slide here, hotels have been developed throughout New York City. So in commercial and mixed use districts, hotels have introduced conflicts with surrounding uses. Overnight accommodations differ from other as-of-right uses because they're similar to both commercial and residential uses, but also have the potential to conflict with both. This unique characteristic of hotels may require additional scrutiny to ensure they're developed in ways that won't present conflicts with the surrounding area. It bears mentioning again that a robust tourism economy is vital to the city's economic health and is expected to recover from the pandemic. Once the industry does recover, hotel development is expected to resume in a robust way, but the pattern of hotel development over the last decade indicates a need to better regulate how and where hotels are built. While it's important that hotels can continue to locate throughout the city to support a vibrant tourism economy and meet the diverse needs of its residents and businesses, the pace and patterns of development driven by this record high visitation has overwhelmed some communities. Thus, the proposed text amendment will create a consistent zoning framework for new hotels and allow the City Planning Commission to evaluate each hotel development's impact on the future use and development of the surrounding area. Next slide, please. And here's a map of the applicability. The new special permit will be applicable in higher density commercial districts, mixed use districts, and paired M1R districts where there is not a special permit today. The new special permit will also apply to those areas that already have a special permit, which you can see in gray. And M1 districts will retain the findings from the M1 hotel special permit, since those address unique concerns in light industrial areas. So the magenta area shows areas, the magenta color shows areas that will require the new citywide hotel special permit. This means that any hotel development would need to apply for this special permit with the Department of City Planning, and this process would make all proposed hotels subject to ULURP review, which includes time for community boards to review, adopt, and submit a recommendation to the City Planning Commission. It's also important to note that the proposed special permit does not preclude hotel development, nor does it deem all future hotels inappropriate. It just requires the City Planning Commission to assess the appropriateness of such development based on the future use and development of the surrounding area. Next slide, please. Because of the significant impacts that the pandemic is having on the hotel industry, we've created several provisions to minimize the likelihood that the special permit will impair the recovery of the hotel industry. There are modified vesting provisions to facilitate projects that are already in the pipeline. Aging projects that were filed with the Department of Buildings prior to 2018 will need to obtain a foundation permit prior to adoption. And projects filed between January 1st of 2018 and May 3rd of 2021, which was when this was referred out, need to obtain zoning plan approval from the DOB prior to adoption. And both categories of these vested projects will have 6 years instead of the standard 2 years from the date of adoption to complete construction. And this is to ensure that they have adequate time to build as demand returns. We also have exclusions of recent or active land use applications. Any approved CPC or BSA application will not require a special permit if approved after January 1st of 2018, and applications that begin CPC public review or file with the BSA prior to the adoption date will also not require a special permit. We also have extended discontinuance provision, which would allow vacant hotels extra time to return to transient use. Usual discontinuance allows for a building that has been vacant for 2 years to reopen with its previous use. We are proposing an extension to 6 years to allow for these closed hotels to reopen. These provisions are meant to allow for a portion of the approximately 42,000 closed rooms to return and for the pipeline to be built, bring back an important industry to New York City. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
So just go back into briefly the grandfathering provision. So if you could speak to that again.
Okay. So is there a specific part of
the foundation?
Okay. So the modified vesting provisions, is that what you would for the Department of Buildings itself?
Yes.
Okay. So aging projects, we've basically said that any project filed before January 1st of 2018 is an aging project, and they have a little bit higher standard to reach to be vested. And so they would need a foundation permit, but they would also have the 6 years to construct. Newer projects filed between January 1st of 2018 and the referral date, which was May 3rd of 2021, only need to obtain a zoning plan approval from the Department of Buildings and also have the 6 years to be built.
And just go through what impact do you think this will have on hotel growth moving into the future?
So the draft environmental impact statement acknowledged a shortfall of approximately 47,000 rooms by 2035. And so these provisions are meant to mitigate that shortfall, where if we did not allow for these projects to be built, that deficit would be much higher. And we acknowledge that there's a significant adverse impact on the hotel and tourism industry, and we wanted to lessen that.
And obviously, I'm supportive of this text amendment for several reasons. I mean, when we think about hotels like the Umbrella Hotel standards, can you speak to, do you think this amendment will improve hotel standards in terms of workforce, in terms of safety? Why is DCP proceeding with this?
So this text amendment is meant to ensure that hotels are more in tune with the surrounding area. Issues of access and egress are another conflict that could happen. I believe I've given a presentation to many of the community boards showing certain hotels, even in Queens, where there's large curb cuts or narrow sidewalks, which present other kinds of conflicts to the community. I can't speak to the Umbrella Hotel. I don't know exactly which one that is, but I've had an example of a hotel in the Rockaways where it's a thin sidewalk and maybe doesn't give enough room for pedestrians, and they might have to walk in the street, which we think is unsafe.
I know the hotel on 40, I think it's 46th Street or something like that, or 30 something. Yes, it was weird when it was built because it was noticeable how narrow the sidewalk was, amongst other issues. Part of this text amendment doesn't address, and I know community boards have raised this around the conversion of hotels, the homeless, and sort of, can you just speak to that a little bit? Does that address sort of notification efforts by DHS? And I know that that's something we've consistently heard from some community boards, not all, but certainly where there seems to be an oversaturation of hotels, like in CB12 and 14. And even I think might be parts of CB1 as well. There's been concerns about this, going back. Does this application address those specific issues? And could you just speak to, would the city still be able to proceed, you know, if they wanted to place homeless individuals into hotels?
So we hear and we acknowledge those concerns. This text amendment is neutral in regard to homeless policy. So any hotel that is built could convert to a homeless facility, contracting with DHS or their partners. But we believe that any hotel that's developed through this special permit would be less likely to convert to a homeless shelter because of the going through this special permit process. It's a long process. It's an expensive process. So the siting of these hotels may not, you know, they'll be less likely, is what we believe.
All righty, those are my questions. Irving, do you have any? Okay. All right, I think we have some individuals going to testify. So Vanessa will call those who are going to give testimony. We ask you to stay within your 3-minute allotted time and to mute until we call you. So I'll go to Vanessa.
I'll be announcing speakers alternating between those who selected for or against the item. So our first speaker will be Izetta Mobley, who's speaking for the item. Izetta?
Please mute yourself until you're called. Thank you. Izetta, just unmute yourself. Mobley, Izetta Mobley. I see you here, but you know, she's on the phone. She may have to press *6, I think. Try *6 or 6 *6.
Dial *67.
All right, there you go.
Okay, I'm unmuted, I think. You
Yes,
hear me?
you're good. Yes, Miss Mobley.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry to come in late, but I'm not very good at this technical stuff. But I am concerned, and I really want to know how do you intend to reach out to the community? Because I am a resident of Queens. I'm in Hollis for years, and I'm very concerned about the hotels in the area. And I want to know just how are you going to reach out to people like myself, who is a homeowner and a parent. And I would like to know how you're going to reach out to us. How are you going to include us and to make sure that we know what's coming into the neighborhood? Well, how are you going to pick areas? Well, you know, we have an area I'm particularly concerned because you have a hotel on Hollis and 203rd that was totally, as far as I'm concerned, the community was totally left out of. It's in the midst of 3 schools, daycare center, and library. I want to know, how are you going to deal with these issues when you come into the community? Are you going to come in to look out for the community, or are you going to come in just to put in a building? These are the things that I want to know beforehand, and I like to be involved and know just what you're doing and how I can be of help and how we can make our neighborhood part of whatever the system is without being pushed out. Okay, so that's one of the reasons why I'm here for this meeting today. Took me a while, took me over an hour just to get on. So if anybody there can give me some of those answers.
Well, this is not, you know,
can tell me, do we have?
So I'll tell, but this is not a town hall. This is, you know, we're taking testimony on this specific application. Right, but I'll speak to, and one, I'm a Hollis kid, by the way. So I'm definitely familiar. My parents are still in Hollis. So one, in terms of hotels, one of the reasons we're hearing this text amendment is to ensure that there is more checks and balances on hotels as they are looking to get approved in the city. So that's what this text amendment technically does. It does give the city a little bit more strength to rein in, you know, hotels before they come up. And I guess I can go into, Alexander, if you just want to touch a little bit more on, you know, the purpose of this text amendment, but it's certainly to strengthen us in terms of hotels just propping up without any oversight in our community. So Alexander, I don't know if you want to go a little further into that.
Yeah, not a problem. So currently hotels can be built as of right. If the zoning allows it, a hotel could be built on the zoning lot. With this text amendment, it would, anyone who wants to develop a hotel would have to come to the Department of City Planning. And then if, you know, they submit their application, this would then go through the ULURP process, which includes public review, and they would have to go to the community boards, speak with the community boards, and the community board can then submit their recommendations on what they think about the hotel development.
Great.
I
So
hope
thank
that helps.
you for your testimony. We now move on to the next person testifying.
Our next speaker will be Elaine Blair, speaking against the item.
Elaine, if you could unmute yourself.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm speaking for the item, and I'm sorry, I did say against. I'm speaking for the item because personally, I live in St. Albans and pretty much involved in the community. And as far as I see, there are hotels that we have pretty much alongside Liberty Avenue going there, 173, and along the stretch there is. And I see and I witness, because I'm involved with the youth in and around the parks where we get involved, and we notice, and I notice where the involvement is, that those hotels that are built there is pretty much not housing as it says, or it was pretty much built for international and also locally travelers. Is pretty much, it's open pretty much maybe a couple of months for that what it said is put up for, and then we see the homeless are in there. It pretty much degrade our community, and pretty much what is not just even the homeless, because everyone need a home, but also we see where there are drugs, we see there's a lot of in and out trafficking, which is not supposed to be conducive to the neighborhood when we're raising our children in those neighborhoods. And pretty much I want to have a say so in wherever the hotels are built, and to make sure that whatever is built, and I would say that my input in, we need housing. Yes, that's why homeless services are using these hotels. We need housing for our people in the community. So therefore, I would really like to have a say so when anything is being built as far as hotels in our neighborhood, to ensure that we are pretty much, it is in an area where it's not degrading the neighborhood, but it will build the neighborhood for the purpose it says it's there for. So, you know, in any event, I am for this bill to make sure that whatever is passed to build in our community is something conducive to make sure that we benefit from it in a positive way.
Thank you so much for your testimony, Ms. Blair. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to the next individual.
Next speaker is Nancy Tavares.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Nancy. Good.
Okay, my name is Nancy Tavares, and I live in Queens almost for 40 years. I live on South Ocean Park, always in Queens. And I live close to the casino in Rockaway, and they building a hotel in there. And they always have traffic. It's not the same thing like before. They always have noise, people walking around, smoking, weed. And the police always around here because the place is not safe no more, because the casino, and now they're building a hotel in there. It's really too much. And I see hotels, they're building hotels on Jamaica Avenue, and it's maybe like 3 or 4 buildings in there for hotels. And I don't know, the Queens is not the same thing right now with so many hotels around here.
Thank you for your testimony.
You're welcome.
Next speaker will be Chandra Singh.
Chandra Singh, unmute yourself.
Yes.
There you go. You're unmuted now.
Yes. Hi, good morning. My name is Chandra Singh. I live in Woodhaven and have been living in Queens for the past 15 years. Over the years, I have seen our neighborhood develop very fast and not always with the interests of residents in mind. We have seen hotels come and go, and when the hotel gets built without community input, we have seen how this hurt our community. I want special permit to happen because we deserve a say in how our neighborhood changes. Thank you for taking
Thank you
the
for
time.
your testimony. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
All right, we'll move on to the next individual testifying.
Next speaker is Brahim Hafid.
Good morning. Do you hear me?
Yes, good morning.
Yes, good morning. Good morning. Hi, my name is Hafid Ibrahim. I have been living in Corona for many years. I live with my wife and 2 kids. We love how safe, quiet, and residential it's over here. Where new hotels have been built, we have seen this neighborhood changed very dramatically. Places that used to be safe and quiet are now more and more commercial developed. Hotels have brought a lot of outside visitors, and with that, a lot of traffic and more noise at night and also in all the weekends. I am worried that if this trend continues, plus
And Mr. Hafid, thank you. Broke up.
Our next speaker is Janine Nixon.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Janine Nixon, and I currently live downtown Flushing, and I've been a Queens resident for many years. I grew up in Hollis. I raised my first son in South Jamaica, Queens, and now I'm downtown. I do support the hotels text amendment because I know firsthand that the hotels developments and around near the airport has negatively impacted our community without any input for residents. Over the past 10 years, a lot of the new hotels, they open in New York City and not just in Manhattan. Hotels have been open all over the outer boroughs. Some of the hotels have brought tourists to new neighborhoods, while others built in places that haven't become, popular in the neighborhoods to stay in. If there's anything New York City has, is plenty of is hotels. I'm not against the vast majority of the hotels in New York City. I do believe that they provide accommodations to millions of the tourists. They have good jobs, they generate tax dollars, but I think I have been seen, especially in Queens, where hotels have changed the surrounding areas, and it's not hard to argue. They were needed. It shouldn't be too much to ask the hotel developers to work with the neighbors around where they want to build. the city already has a surplus of hotels in 2019, which was a record year for tourism. So it definitely is not, in danger of running out of the hotel rooms anytime soon. Again, the public, just letting the public have a say so in the development. The hotel development may slow the hotel construction, but it will make sure that the hotel developments going forward is substantial and doesn't destroy the character of the city that brings tourists here in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nixon, for your testimony.
You're welcome.
Any others testifying?
Yes, our next speaker is Deshaun Burris.
I don't see him on.
Okay, we move on to the next. We have Harold Miller.
Hey, Harold.
Good morning, Mr. Borough President. Good morning, all. I just want to just give raise my voice in support of this text amendment. I think it's important that we have special permits for hotel construction. As a homeowner in St. Albans, we want to make sure that anything that's coming into our community, the community has some say-so in it. And I think this is sound policy for us to have in place so we can be able to limit the amount of hotels that's coming in that actually doesn't really serve the purpose of accommodating tourists or accommodating guests who have need of hotel space. Because particularly in Southeast Queens, we have seen overdevelopment of hotels in the last few years. And you question why you see certain hotels in certain blocks. You see some, that's nowhere near tourist attractions or accommodating, the local community as a whole. And so I'm not against development. I'm not against new hotels, but what I would always be in favor of is making sure that we develop and plan our community smartly. And so that's why I'm in favor of this. And, want to make sure that opportunities where we can build affordable housing in place of some of these hotels, want us to do that. We need senior housing, as we know, Mr. Borough President, and some of these places where we've been building hotels in the last few years, definitely could have been opportunities.
Oh, froze. I think he dropped off. Harold, you back? Alrighty. Oh, I think I see Harold's hand raised. If you're on the phone, hit star. Oh, he's coming back in.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I hear you now. Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah, not sure what happened, but.
All right, there you go again. Just unmute yourself.
All right. Well, I was wrapping up anyway to saying that as we all know, we are in need of more affordable housing, particularly senior housing, low-income housing in certain parts of our communities. And those parcels of land could be better used for items like that. And so, having a ULURP process for, hotel applications can raise those questions and raise whether or not is it necessary for our community. So that was it. I appreciate the opportunity and the time. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. All righty.
Next, we have Arlene Phipps.
Arlene, unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes, I hear you now.
Hi, Donovan Richardson. How you doing, sir?
Good. So good to hear your voice.
Yes, sir. It's Miss Phipps from over there on Beach 66th Street. I'm hearing all about the hotels and things like that. And Donovan, I'm not really that clear on it, but I do know that it's a good thing. But at the same time, you get a lot of people that are coming in there, you know, sometimes that might not be too conducive to the community. So with me being an early childhood educator, I find that my areas of concern are, Donovan, what can we do for the children? We need things out here where these kids can have more activities and where the young adult males can have some type of a vocational training. And that's what I would be interested in, because I want to try to open up my daycare on Saturdays for a STEM program. If I could hire 2 college students that are good in it, I would like to do that. So that's my take on this. I'm not that astute on all of these other things, but I would like to really see something done where we have some kind of activities in the community for the children, Donovan. And it's good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thank you. And we have a few community centers coming out there. So we look forward to seeing those projects done as well. So thank you for your testimony, and certainly for the concern for CB14 when it comes to these hotels. It's definitely a welcome step in the right direction. Okay, we'll go to the next person. Thank you, Arlene.
You're welcome.
I saw Deshaun enter the attendee list. I didn't know. Yeah. Okay. And I see an Audria Newsome. Oh, I got notification that she does not want to speak, so that concludes our speakers list.
I'm good. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, I'm speaking just on a little piggyback off of Ms. Phipps. Well, I do also live in the Far Rockaway area, and I wanted to speak in regards to the buildings of the hotels and our community. There's no indoor recreation for the children to go and play in a cool vented area. I would like to see more of a community center base for the community, the children in our community, and also as being a provider, having a walk area that's look a little exciting for the young youth, the children that's in daycare, like when we do our daily walks around in the neighborhood, you know, see more blossom in the flowerings and food restaurants of growth. So with that being said, you know, not to take up too much time, but I would like to see more of a community center base for the children where they can go and also play like a basketball or indoor pool. We do have the YMCA, which is a pretty, you know, costly for some of the family members in our community. So something that, you know, can be either a little affordable for the families in the community of Rockaway area, or something of free funding, you know, where the children can go and play.
Thank you so much for your testimony, Ms. Newsome, and some good news on the horizon. We hope DCP funds all of these projects so we can see these things happen sooner than later. But the new Far Rockaway Library is moving far along. Looks good, and it's going to have a teen center in it and a children's center. And then we do have, eventually, when Auburn East is done, we do have a 25,000 square foot community center space allotted for that. And then also for the old Peninsula Hospital site as well, there's a community center slotted for that. So, you know, I'm well aware for the Rockaway residents testifying today that we are 40 years behind where we needed to be, but, you know, things are moving in the right direction. And of course, we want the city to fund all of these things sooner than later so that they can move forward. So thank you for your testimony today. And I want to thank everybody. Is there anyone else testifying?
No, we're good.
I have one more word. I'm sorry for interrupting. I also wanted to see something as far as the senior citizens where they can come out and enjoy the cooling center base as well. We have one place which is in the Edgemere area in the center, which is not, I want to say, too safe for the seniors. Yeah, and it's the size of it is kind of too small.
Right.
So if we could get something for the senior citizens as well, that would be appreciated.
Thank you, Ms. Newsom.
Thank you.
Once again, all of these multi-generational centers I'm talking about will definitely help to serve the needs of residents of the Rockaway. So I want to thank you for your testimony once again. I want to thank everybody for coming out this morning. A lot of good things happening as we come out of this pandemic to make sure that we're just not building back, but rebuilding back stronger for communities across Queens, creating good jobs, strengthening our land use procedures to make sure that our quality of life is better. So today is a great day. I'm very excited about Fresh, of course. Food access is something critical for Queens residents coming out of this pandemic. So I want to thank everybody who attended, everybody who testified. It's great to hear a lot of community members on from different parts of Queens just testifying on behalf of their local communities. And we urge you to continue to do that, stay engaged. So thank you. Thank you to City Planning. Thank you to all my staff once again for making this hearing possible. And look forward to seeing you the next time. Take care, everyone.